welcome to Liberty Contracts, and welcome to everybody. If this is your first time, this is going to be an exciting episode. So, a few announcements before we get started. Our exciting new mobile app is coming out next week. We are doing our podcast live every Tuesday night at 9:30, and we encourage you to join us every single time and to share us so that everybody can get the info that's coming. So again, welcome to our live podcast. This week we are talking about who are the banks and what are they doing to make money. As usual, we have John and Tarek joining us to help us understand this fact of life. And before we get started here, I just wanted to read a disclaimer. The information contained herein is for educational purposes only. The author is not a lawyer, has no affiliation to any law societies, government, or regulating body or NGO or legal authority. All information contained herein should be carefully researched by the reader so that the reader may understand how a rule, act, statute, regulation, law, or otherwise applies to all legal situations are different. Be responsible and act accordingly. Thank you for that. So, John and Tarek, I want to dive right into it. So, we'll start with you, Tarek. Let's start with what a bank is. Please tell us, what is a bank?
Thank you, Luke. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Awesome. What is a bank? Well, the general legal definition that is on any law website that purports to give out definitions is an officially chartered institution empowered to receive deposits, make loans, and provide checking and savings account services, all at a profit. My quick take is that they don't tell you that they're also acting like money changers.
That is the perfect definition of a bank. We're going to get deeper into that for sure. How about you, John? What's the definition of a bank? Are you going to give a different version of that?
No, it's pretty much the same answer. It covers all the bases. Black's Law says a bank is an institution usually incorporated whose business is to receive money on deposit, cash checks or drafts, discount commercial paper, make loans, and issue promissory notes payable to bearer, known as banknotes. Pretty straightforward.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so Tarek, what can we do with a bank at a personal and business level?
That's a great question. I personally believe that theoretically, you can keep your money safe at a bank at a personal level, or at a private level, actually, and conduct business or commerce-related transactions in an escrow account-like setting to keep the money safe. Really, I think and there's no need to be giving any other personal definitions on that one.
So this applies also for the business levels?
Well, like I said, it has to do with business or commerce related transactions in an escrow like settings. So this means that if somebody is purchasing something from you, that you can keep it in an escrow account, escrow like account, which then holds it for a certain amount of days before it's actually released to you, so that you can provide healthier customer service.
Okay, sounds good. How about you, John? What do you have to add to that, or say about what can we do with banks at a personal and on a business level?
I think there's all kinds of different things you can do. I mean, you can create deposit accounts, deposit and withdraw like usual, but all of that's on the retail side. And all of that is essentially retail banking, and you're limited in what you can do to protect your money. And just because you're not the only one who has access to it, other government bodies, authorities can have access to your money and ultimately remove it or get it removed from your bank because it's not protected, because Well, there's another question. We'll get into that later.
Yeah. There's always a lot of questions on this topic. Okay, so you were touching on this. Maybe you could start with this one, John. What types of banks are in existence today, and like what are their functions?
We have a lot of different banks in existence right now. Various levels of banking. We have the retail banks. In Canada, we have the Big Five, I think they're called. But then there's and all of those Big Five banks all have their own retail side and their own commercial and private sides to banking, where they do take customers. But then there's larger banks. There's central banks. There's how high do you want to go? There's the IMF, which is a bank. There's the Bank of International Settlements. There's the EDC, the DTC, the DTCC, and all those are technically banks, although most of those other ones don't have. It's only the Big Five that actually have any sort of customers. All of them in Canada are regulated under the Bank Act, but again, it's all for retail side banking and for what you can do with regular deposit accounts.
If somebody would ask me what types of bank are there, I would have been so off on this question, because I would have said, well, there's Scotiabank, there's Royal Bank, Service, so this is I didn't even really know there's that many styles of banks. What about you, Tarek? Like what can you say about what types of banks there are, and why really don't we know about all of these types of banks?
Well, I would just really add to John's answer here, because I think that he covered a lot of ground with that one. But really, there are 10 types of banks, at least in Canada and the UK even, because Canada is a dominion of the UK. So really just 10 banks. So retail banks, which most of us do banking with. Then we have the commercial banks. Bet you didn't know there was a difference between the two, hey? We'll talk about commercial banking in another video. Investment banks, which are kind of like equity banking, but they take equity away from you, do not give equity to you. Then there are credit unions, which are my personal favorite. I actually like credit unions. They do treat your customers better. Then there is private banks, which treat their customers phenomenally well, better than anybody else. We have the online banks, savings and loan banks, shadow banks. Can you believe that? Neobanks and challenger banks. There are really 10 types.
That's a lot of banks.
That's a little more detailed than my answer.
So, John, if the current monetary system is all fiat paper currency, how are we making money, or are we even making money?
Well, this is a very long and complicated answer.
Give us the short version.
What's that?
Give us the short version.
The short version is, you by the strength of your signature is making money. You by the things that you do is making money. It's creating money.
Creating money for us or for them, the banks?
Sometimes both, but mostly them. Because they have the ability to monetize that security now, that signature, to turn it into dollars, and usually they do not end up in your account. So yes, we're making money, but there's a lot of inflation going on.
I think the world has noticed.
I think so.
Tarek, do you have anything to add to that about the monetary system being, fiat currency, and how are we making money?
Well, we're not making money. We're creating debt. And when you sign off on any document, promissory note, debenture, bond, whatever, it's creating debt or IOUs, if that's what really people are asking. And money really is classified under law, the Canadian law, the United States law, and any law in the world, even, especially the Russian law, that the money is considered something that holds value, and that is gold and silver, and in some cases copper. So really, we're not making money. We cannot physically make money, but we can generate debt. We can generate IOUs. That we have plenty of.
Well, we need to start making more money. Our signatures seems to be the most powerful tool we have in our database. So, what is the debt-based system that you were just talking about, and who was responsible for creating this function around banks?
Is this question for John?
Oh, I thought you
Go
were going
for
to continue. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, how is debt created? Like John said, it's in modern times, it's created with the signature on the paper. However, I would like to expand on that a little bit more. Debt is created when one man or a woman borrows an artifact or money from another man or woman. When the agreed upon period of borrowing the term is concluded, they're returned to the original owner on agreed upon terms, such as an interest rate, and business is concluded. A lot of the times, the public was responsible for creating this function around the banks, as banks in olden days were such a place where one could borrow or return items, much like a library. Modern days, this has been turned on its head, frankly, and how the banks act. And now the banks act like money changers, which means that there are many species of money that we must contend with.
Like money changers in what way? Just like foreign exchange kind of way, or I just want you to be more specific on what kind of money exchange are you talking about? Gold and silver?
Well, it's simple. It's really paper-based fiat currency that I'm talking about, and the way that it is deposited into the banks. So the bank or credit card company, ironically enough, the name is so ironic, it makes me chuckle every time. Anyways, when you create a transaction, when you create the promissory note with a bank, they literally just deposit that as a species of money, and it generates IOUs. In the same way, believe it or not, when you swipe that card with the credit card company, that credit card is actually creating new money from thin air. So
Wow.
That's really what I'm talking about. They actually take that money, they create that new money, send it off to the merchant right away, and then charge you on that money. On top of that, they charge your card, so you have to pay them. So it's a double dipping thing that they do. That's what a money changer is. They double dip.
Well, do you have anything to add to that, John?
No, not really. I don't know if there's much to add to that.
No, that was a good answer.
I wanted to say that from what I can tell, the whole debt-based system is, from a psychological aspect, is simply designed to keep people in fear and lack straight up. And then, it's limits people's financial stability and security and the amount of funds that they have available to them. And they charge interest and usury, and they're doing the, like Tarek was saying, with the creating money out, or creating the obligation out of thin air. Every time you swipe your credit card, there's technically your signature attached to the documents that for the purchase that you made, in every aspect. So, and even when you go to a bank to say you want to deposit some cash because you got a Christmas present or something, and you want to deposit it to your bank account, then the teller hands you a receipt that has the name, the account number, the amount, and all the important details on it, and you sign your name on it and hand it back to them, and you just created that money. That's now a new IOU that they can use and ledger against in their debt-based system.
So when we scan our card, we're actually getting scammed. So we are scamming our card. Ah, I get it.
In a
It's
lot of
that.
ways, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I have a two-part question here. I'm going to start with John because you just touched on this. Why do banks want to continue? You talked about the fear. So why do banks want to continue the development of the debt system?
I think for that ultimate control, for that overlordship, if you want to call it, over the financial system.
Okay, and Tarek, if you want to, the second part of that is, are they, because of what's happening right now, are they abandoning that because we're seeing the development of the digital currency?
Well, in a way they are, and in a way they aren't. So it's really a double-edged sword, and it's more like a Schrodinger's cat than a straight answer. The cat is alive and dead at the same time. So because when you have created debt, but it's real debt, then all the debts are settled at some point. But when you create a perception of debt, that is something that is the magician's trick, Mandrake's trick. It's created out of thin air. Then you can perpetually continue that debt cycle. And so, why wouldn't they want to continue this? So yes, they are continuing it. However, more and more we're seeing that they are resetting the system, where one must now borrow digital assets, which have a definition of reality in the real world. And return on these digital assets is now considered real. In my opinion, again, it's a bit of both. The banks are perpetuating the system in the digital world, so you don't have privacy over your transactions for a reason. They're not creating or lending anything. They are making money on your hard work, and because this is profitable, they now want to create these conditions in a digital environment. Why? Because they were afraid of losing control of the system, which they will, no matter how they think they can game our society. I mean, when you stop someone cold like that, cold turkey, on their gambling habits, this is the reaction that they have. So sorry, bankers, you're at a disadvantage here. We have the cryptocurrency advantage. You like to say that, oh, we're gonna have the transparency in all of our transactions. Yeah, you say that, but it's really a play on words, and we're gonna explain that. I don't mean to make anyone my enemy here, but this has to be said. If you hadn't lied to us and cheated out of us of our wealth, maybe the system would have continued for a millennia or more. But here we are.
Well, yeah, like from what I have seen and what I hear, I'm actually, I mean, the double-edged sword makes sense because, on one side, they're taking all of our money, they're using and charging us money from thin air. On the other hand, government control. Everything we do will be a transaction record, and they will be able to do pretty much anything they want. Now, I just want to ask a question on this though. Isn't cryptocurrency or digital currency, won't that be based on blockchain, where you can't manipulate the information?
Well, I think that's the idea, and it's a very good idea. Mainly because blockchain itself is a safe box. It's a safeguarded box. It's not like you're something that can be penetrated and no one knows really until the last minute. It has an instantaneous detection level, and that encryption level, I personally believe, is phenomenal from a cybersecurity standpoint and an IT standpoint. And from the other, it's that when you have a piece of the ledger on every single computer, well, not necessarily in that order, or in that scenario, then you create reliability across the entire chain. So it's a trustless system. Yes, I would want that system, because now the banks cannot cheat anyone out of anything. So if they ask you to do something for you, they must pay
in exchange for
for
total
whatever
control.
that service is. Wow.
That's right. John, can you add to any of that little conversation we just had?
Yeah, I wanted to say, I'm thinking of different transactional situations that I've heard of or been through in my life, and something like paying your utilities. If you, in say the 90s, when we were all using checks before we all had wallets on our phones or credit cards in our wallets or all that sort of fun stuff, when you would take a check to, or because it's a known instrument, everybody knows what a check is. You take a check to your bank to pay, say, your electric bill, and you take the stub from your electric bill with you to the bank, or your statement with you to the bank, and they take the check and then deposit the money to their account, from your account to their account, but the bank takes the check instrument itself and puts it somewhere. We're not entirely sure, but it's the one that has the signatures on it. And then the instrument that is the utility bill ends up going, the bottom third of that instrument ends up going back to the utility company. So the utility company ends up with the amount that was debited from your account and also the value of the voucher on the bottom of the bill. So they end up with getting paid several times, and then the bank on top of it still keeps the original instrument that you used to pay the bill. Excuse me. So ultimately, there's, like we were saying, there's so many different layers of them scamming the system that with the CBDC, it's more likely to continue. It's just that now it's all just ones and zeros in an account, and they're controlling all the ones and zeros. There's really no security behind it so far that anybody has suggested, other than cryptocurrencies or something like that, and the blockchain. But in like the CDC or the CBDC that the Fed has been talking about, and other governments and other central banks have been talking about, I don't think they have really any place in this world as far as a technological advancement goes.
Very interesting. I love having these discussions because you get to dig deep into so many different aspects, pros and cons. Tarek, I'll go back to you for a second. And a while ago you talked about money change. Are today's banks money changers, and what does that really mean? Again, I just want to clarify that.
Without a doubt, they're money changers. Without a doubt. They use many species of money to buy, sell, or borrow, or lend, rather, on real-world assets. That's how they rip people off their hard-earned wealth. Money changing to me means that the banks use ambiguous definitions of money to create an action in the real world. That's very plain and simple. So, it's like me not having any wealth of my own and saying that I wanted to get this can off of somebody, and then creating that mandrake mechanism, getting somebody to actually pay me that money, and using another species of money to pay somebody else off. So the system is, once again, it's all debt based. Now, if the debt based system continues, then yes, we'll always have money changers, and unfortunately, we see that from the time of Jesus, they were in the Solomon's temple while they were scamming people out of their money, which is why Jesus got so mad and flipped over the tables, which is why he was murdered, really. But in today's day and age, we see that these money lenders have taken over our banks, a societal money library, which you could borrow money from, literally.
Wow. So, John, this is going to be just to continue off of what we were talking about earlier. If they are money changers, and we're going we're now going into a system of currency where it's going to be blockchain based, and it'll be more transparent. Is it possible that it's because they've been using our money and bought enough now to not have to worry about everything, and now we're just going to now it could be legit because they already got everything? Is that a possibility?
I don't think so. In almost every case I can think about in history, when somebody has been presented with the idea of or somebody's been presented with a pile of money, they've made their money or whatever. When has anybody ever wanted to stop? And I don't think it's a matter of having enough money that you decide you want to help the world. I think in a lot of ways it has to do with the power and control that they're gaining from keeping people in fear and keeping people broke.
Well, that's a great answer. So let's go back to something that I don't know anything about, and that is GAAP. Can we define the importance of GAAP, which I think stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles in banking practices today?
Well, these are a set of rules, standards, and procedures issued by the Financial Accounting Standards Board (FASB) and public companies whether they're in the U.S. or Canada, and they must follow GAAP, the generally accepted accounting practices, when their accountants compile their financial statements. In other words, which means that violating GAAP is in the bracket of it being a serious offense or a felony and can be grounds for serious punishment by the law, which is why it is important to read GAAP for everyone and know its ins and outs for the public at large.
John, can you add to that? Like, do you know much about GAAP as well?
Yep, I've actually used it for my business for doing. It's a list of guidelines. Really, it's not any way to do math or any sort of what needs to be on your form other than numbers that already need to be on your form. But when you're doing up a financial statement, it's just principles of like rules to follow. Stuff to consider when you're doing up your books, so that you have honest, straightforward, logical, structured financial statements. I actually have them open here if you want me to read through them quickly. There's 10 of them.
Yes, please go ahead. I would love to hear that.
Sure. Okay, I'll read the short versions. The first one is Principle of Regularity. GAAP compliant accountants strictly adhere to established rules and regulations. 2, Principle of Consistency. Consistent standards are applied throughout the financial reporting process. 3, Principle of Sincerity. GAAP compliant accountants are committed to accuracy and impartiality. 4, Principle of Permanence of Methods. Consistent procedures are used in the preparation of all financial reports. 5, Principle of Non-Compensation. All aspects of an organization's performance, whether positive or negative, are fully reported with no prospect of debt compensation. 6, Principle of Prudence. Speculation does not influence the reporting of financial data. 7, Principle of Continuity. Asset valuations assume the organization's operations will continue. 8, Principle of Periodicity. Reporting of revenues is divided by standard accounting periods, such as fiscal quarters or fiscal years. 9, Principle of Materiality. Financial reports fully disclose the organization's monetary situation. 10, Principle of Utmost Good Faith. All involved parties are assumed to be acting honestly. And it's not only banks that adhere to this, but anybody who does up financial statements is required to adhere to generally accepted accounting principles.
So I want to ask John this question. How are banks making money off of our money?
Simply, they're ledgering it. They're using generally accepted accounting principles, as well as the reserve banking system, and double entry bookkeeping. And double entry bookkeeping is actually pretty easy to understand because it's basically the simplest form of bookkeeping you can get, but you do it to one side and then you do it to the other side. And that's how it goes. And they're using that regularly along with the using using your money of exchange to pay a bill when or to debit your account, but then creating a money of account instrument, financial instrument, every single time you sign your signature.
For whatever reason, whatever, like your signature on houses, your signature on like on a mortgage,
Yep.
your signature
On a
on.
mortgage, when you sign a credit card application, that application gets bundled into the system and monetized, and you may or may not get the credit card, but you've given up all your information and you've put it on this application, and that application gets bundled and sold, ultimately to the DTC or the DTCC or the EDC, and it goes somewhere into the market after that as a bundled package of instruments.
That's interesting. I always thought they made money from just taxing all the interest they charge on these mortgages and car loans and everything else, and of course all the NSFs and all just all the banking fees. I thought that's the only way they made money. Tara, can you expand on how they make money off of our money?
Absolutely. I'll expand on John's answer, but before I expand on that, I would like to say that the interest that they make off of us, it's really chump change, and we will explain that in a bit. So, well, there's a common misconception that banks are flush with cash, as they say in the business development circles. Nothing could be further from the truth, people. Nothing could be further from the facts. Banks are flush with great and creative rules that allow them to make a lot of money. That money is then gambled away in the forex or stock market. Banks are compulsive gamblers.
Yep.
I want to be a banker today.
They make direct deposits for debt instruments, convert them into IOUs, which are then churned, traded, and gambled in the forex and stock market. That's really what they do.
Wow, I never knew. That's why I asked the questions, because how long have you guys known this kind of information? Because wow, that's some pretty. I mean, I never knew that they did all of that and used it. I've heard something about the reserve, the reserves. I thought
fractional reserves.
I heard that term before, but you've just put it into a way that's not what you were talking about. The fractional reserve is when they send our money somewhere and they make a huge profit off that too, right?
Well, but they ledger it, because in the fractional reserve system, they have to ledger a specific amount of money so that they can hold that as reserve, and that stays on the books. They might not actually have the physical piece of paper, but it stays on the books as in their control, and then they can lend out to, I think it's 28 times on top of that money. So if they take in $1,000, they can lend out $28,000.
Well, I'm not a mathematician, but that sounds a little bit ridiculous.
Yep.
So where does that money circulate, and how can we get a piece of that action?
Tarek?
Well, that money that money circulates in overnight exchange rates. It circulates in forex and stock markets. It now even circulates recently. It circulates in the cryptocurrency market, and that's where you have the exchanges like Binance and Pal4. There's so many out there that I can't even remember on the top of my head. I mean, there are like 16 different exchanges just for cryptocurrency alone that are just coin token exchanges. So there's a lot of money sloshing around in that fund.
Yeah.
And that's well over $1 trillion. How can we get a piece of the action? Make friends with the banks the correct way. And that way is to serve notices to the right authorities who can help set your record straight. We talk about that on our subscribers only videos for a price of a meal a month.
Wow. John, you must have something to add to that. How would you get a piece of the action?
I want to get into the overnight lending rate, because I think that would be a great place to gamble.
Yes.
But at the same time, I see, as soon as you give something to the bank, especially on the retail side, You're deposing it to them. You're giving it to them.
Mm.
And it's no longer yours. They can do what they want with it within reason. And they do. And I don't know. Can you even get in on it? At this point, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of the big question, right? I mean, if someone wanted to work with the banks, with the bankers, how would they go about doing it? I mean, is it just really building a relationship, or is it much harder to to become involved in that I don't know, private side?
But send the correct notices to the authorities, like we said, like we teach in our program. You don't want them to become antagonists or antagonistic to you, but you do want to apply the correct amount of pressure and the method of pressure. Because if you don't apply pressure, if I don't like to use this guy's example, but he has some good points in his videos. His name is Jordan Peterson, and so he says that you have to have teeth, and if you don't show your teeth, then the world's gonna eat you alive, and that's very true. So if you don't show a little bit of teeth to the right people in the right capacity, you're not gonna get what you want.
Do you have anything to add to that, John?
Yeah. Actually not. Yeah, I guess to add to that, the first thing you'd have to do is ask some questions, and you would definitely have to change your contracts. Go about serving the notices that you need to, so that you can get the things that you want from that institution. And they're not going to act on. They're not going to act in your benefit unless you ask them to act in your benefit and hold them to it. And like with one of the banks that I deal with regularly, I have like a personal account there. There's no longer customer service. The customer service that you get is actually just a computer, and you got to go through the entire process and through the entire system. Even though they have a bank president and they have employees, you have to go through the entire system in order to get somebody to talk to about, banking issues. So this is the type of situation where we're in, where you have to go deep in this thing, because these banks are ledgered so massively that they don't even have time for their own clients anymore.
That's right.
Wow. Actually, I've noticed that now it's like you can't just click on 0 to get to the operator. They don't have that anymore. It's just robots. So can with people that have like successful businesses, and they don't want to get all their money, all the banks to make money off your money, is there a way for businesses or successful people to start their own banking systems, or is that just too much legislature and too much political involvement where nobody's allowed?
Well, to me, it really does depend on the method that you're going about doing it. So if you're going to go and play the system, you're going to play the game of the system, which means that you want queen on your dollars, the dead queen now. So that way, yes, there's a lot of things that are involved. There are a lot of hoops that you have to jump through in order to actually get to that. However, if you wanted to create a bank that had no queen on the system or on the paper money, or you wanted to define money that way, that it is paper money, it is literally money, it's not a debt obligation, then that is probably a little bit easier to do. However, you would do it still using the generally accepted principles of accounting, and you would still want to uphold the highest standards in that environment, regardless of what you do.
Great answer. So is that why, maybe John, you can answer this one. Is that why there's more and more cryptocurrencies? I mean, there's there's thousands of styles of cryptocurrency. Is that people trying to create their own economies, or is that why is there so many? Since Bitcoin started, there's now been a rush of different coins. Is that a manipulation, or is that something that people are trying to do to kind of have their own ecosystem?
I think it's actually a kind of natural thing. I think humans have kind of realized that, these institutions that have been created seemingly for their benefit aren't really for their benefit. And I think that a lot of the different cryptocurrencies have resulted from people who are just not happy with that part of the system. I was looking up a crypto the other day, actually, it was a while back, so there's probably more. It was number 1103 on a list of over 1,600 different cryptocurrencies that are known about and tradable on. I think Binance is the website that I was on. So there's so many different cryptocurrencies out there that there's so many different ways that people have found to. I mean, there's at least as many cryptocurrencies as there are apps, and there's an app for everything. So there's a cryptocurrency for everything too. And if there's a cryptocurrency that one can use to run their business or do something like that that's not part of the banking system, yeah, I think more people should be doing that. I hope cryptos go sky high.
I agree. I believe in that as well. Last question, guys, for tonight. We one or two more questions. Sorry, the last question is can we trust the banks and the bankers, and why or why not? Tarek, if you want to start with that one, why can we or can we not trust our bankers, and why or why not?
I'm already sweating bullets here. We can, to be honest with you, Luke and John, even here, we can trust them to do what they are doing right now, continuing many years forward. That is money changing and looking for profits. What we cannot trust them to do is look after the society's interests, as you have seen from their conduct. Honestly, yes, they follow their rules to a T. However, those rules have been eroding our personal liberties and freedoms and have been destroying our wealth. Unless we become well-read and ready to take on this all-important aspects of our lives, we can expect them to continue, or we can expect to continue to see more of the same in the future. I think that's the real answer to this. Can we trust the bankers? Yes, but not to do the right thing.
How about you, John? Do you trust your banker?
I want to quote a movie. You can always trust a dishonest man to be dishonest. Honestly, it's the honest ones you want to watch out for. And to be blunt, you have to be really careful who you can trust in now, or, I mean, who do you trust with your money? It's your money, and if you want it to be your money, who can you trust with it better than you? And a bit of a story for you. I had an instrument that I presented to a bank here in Calgary, actually. And on the private side, I presented it to a private banker. I wanted to help finance some infrastructure within the city. So I presented the instrument to her, and we had a great conversation about all kinds of different things. She thought it was a great idea, but ultimately, she took a copy of the instrument, and then after I had left her office, refused to even take my calls. Up to 2 weeks later, she just flat out refused to take my calls as though I didn't exist. About a week or so after that, her name was in the newspaper for having funded the exact same project that I was actually trying to fund. So essentially, I think what she did was she ultimately took my instrument from me, made it her own instrument, and then used it so that she could have her name and the bank's name on that project, as opposed to, some guy having his name on that project. And then she can essentially cut me out of the deal. So can you trust the banker? Yes, but no, you probably shouldn't.
Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, if they're going to steal your ideas on top of your money, we're in trouble. So thank you, Tarek and John. That was a very interesting discussion, and I'm positive that our audience would love a follow-up to this discussion. Any last-minute comments or suggestions for our audience about where they can go to gather more information about banks and the banking system?
So really what the audience can go to learn more is the Bank Act, the Committee of 300, the Infinity Banking Account. Okay. and the Top Secret Banker's Manual. I'm going to reference that again. So
And Modern Money Mechanics.
and Modern Money Mechanics. There we go. So John
Yeah.
recommends Modern Money Mechanics.
Yeah, those are great recommendations. I haven't read them, but I will get right on that, so I have more knowledge on the banking systems and just everything we've talked about tonight, so that I know that there's more than just Scotiabank and TD. So
I apologize. I forgot one more. I had The Creature from Jekyll Island. That's the one that everybody must read.
I never even heard of that one. It doesn't even sound like
Oh,
something.
that's a really good one.
Is it? What is it
Yeah,
called
that
again?
one's-
Sorry, just so that I can write that down.
The Creature from Jekyll Island. And it's a PDF available anywhere.
It's about the creation of the Federal Reserve Board when they actually went to Jekyll Island and had their meeting on Jekyll Island.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for all that info, guys. So thank you for joining us today. We have heard from our experts who have broken down the banking system for us. We invite you to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get all the new updates on our channel. And hit the like button on each of our videos to hack the YouTube algorithm and continue to support the information that we want to provide to all of you guys. So have a great evening, and we will see you next Tuesday at Liberty Contract.
Thank you, everybody.